Hi, this is Sarah from sarayip.com and Facebook, The Numbers Queen. I am a numerologist, palm reader, and 1111 blogger from the Gold Coast in Australia. I help people to reconnect with themselves and their dreams, their children, and their passions. My mission is to help the public heal their perceptions of psychics and intuition from skepticism to trust. So today I have an extremely special guest, Ian White, from the Australian Bushflower Essences, and we're starting this chat at 11:11, which seems very auspicious, Ian. So welcome.
Great, Sarah, and it's like your 11:11 is popping up. I thought, as you said, very auspicious to start at this time today.
I can feel the energy already. So, Ian, how do you like to introduce yourself and the very special work that you do?
I call myself a fifth-generation Australian herbalist, naturopath, and I'm founder of the Australian Bushflower Essences.
Okay, and so I'll just outline how we met. So I've been to quite a few of your workshops now. I've done the numerology one twice and the white light ones and many others. And every time I see you, I seem to have very profound changes. And so I know it works. So one of the things we've bonded over is our love of the numbers. How long have you actually studied numerology for in this lifetime?
I started doing my naturopathy in late 70s, and at the same time I started my naturopathy, I started studying numerology with David Phillips. So that's over 40 years ago now. And every patient I've ever treated, I've done the numerology chart of each of them. I just find it a great, very quick diagnostic tool to get a sense of what their strengths and challenges are in about 15 seconds. So it's just like a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it really is the language of the universe, and it really is a loving act, I think, to look at someone before we treat them and we sort of make those judgments. What do you really love about numerology? Obviously, you love the speed, and it's interesting, numerology has a 55 vibration, which is the same numerology as lightning, and I think that is literally how quickly it can connect us to our purpose again. So what do you love about it?
Oh, look, I think it's that speed that, you know, like I said, you get a birth date, 15 seconds later, you've got a good understanding about that person and where they're at. And then, you know, certainly for knowing how to approach them if they come on a professional level with a health or emotional problem, it gives you a great insight what's going on of how to go and direct that. And you know, it's just fun to, even if you're doing it, you know, for friends or family, just get that broader understanding of who they are. And you can do astrology and you get a lot more detailed information, but you got to look up ephemerises, you got to have books, and it takes a long time. And this is just, boom, really quick and easy.
Yeah, that's true. It's very raw, but it's also very authentic, and people of all ages and demographics seem to really love it. I was laughing as you talked because it reminded me of looking at the make and model of a vehicle when you're out on the road, or you're like kind of like a mechanic, and it just gives you an idea of where to look, you know, where things are likely to break down or what's likely to be positive. And I did laugh a little bit about the speed thing, because you're fast, aren't you? You get things really quickly. I often find myself picking up the pieces, and I don't know if I'll ever catch up with half of your stuff. But that gives me I got other lifetimes to do that, right?
Yeah. And one of the bush essences is called Black-Eyed Susan. And it's like, it's a constitutional type. And by that I mean it seems to match the personality of the person quite well, more than any of the other remedies. And I think whenever you get people living in larger cities, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, or, you know, London, New York, you get a lot of the Black-Eyed Susans. It's that pace of life. It's speedy, it's quick, you know, things aren't happening quick enough, people get impatient, it's the road rage,
Like FOMO,
slow, honking the horn, and that's very much my constitutional remedy. So, you know, that's probably why the speed of it is very appealing.
And look, you've perfectly led into my next question. So we know from your date of birth, which you've given me privately, that you are a 31/4 Lifepath, which I called Builder, the Empire Builder, also the Heart Chakra Healer, because the 4 is a lot about this area of the body. Now we know that this life path is a whole journey about step-by-step progress, patience, and forgiveness. You know, often people with this life path are very, very kind to others, but they're not as generous to themselves. They can be a very strong inner critic. They're often learning to have a bit more of a heart for their own longings and their inner child. And there's often a lot of sort of living up to their father kind of energy, and at times they can feel a bit jaded about people simply because they often work a lot. So have you come to peace with having this 4 life path that requires you to sort of do your due diligence? Have you come to terms with it?
Yeah, look, I find it easy. I think it gives lots of energy. My wife's a 6, and 6 have a very highly strung nervous system, you know, and she's the only musician I know who goes to sleep really early in the evening. So it's a bit of a joke. Like, I'm the 4, just ever ready battery, powering and like, you know, getting dark, and Jane's sort of starting to collapse down a bit. So the good thing about a 4, it gives you lots of energy to do that. I suppose I look at my work with the bush essences, it is putting structure into something. When I was getting a lot of information about it, you know, I thought, how am I going to put this into a sense where people can understand it and be able to use it? And I think maybe that was the good thing about being a 4, to put it in a format, to give it the structure so people can just understand it and incorporate it. So
yeah, it's very much like a bite-sized chunk, and it's just so accessible and affordable, obviously. And it's interesting because Jane, as a 6, is healing her 3rd eye, and we know the nervous system is a messenger system for the psychic energy. So often 6s, I find, they're extremely sensitive to their environment, their diet, what they see, and they really do need to look after their bodies. Whereas the 4s, even especially the children, they need to really touch things and break things and make things. I call it the tradie number, like a tradesperson. They really get in there, get their hands dirty. So
when I made the Black-Eyed Susan, I think that night in meditation, I got a message from Spirit and said, Ian has found his constitutional remedy. Let us hope that he takes it. And I guess that's a nice thing that, you know, like for all the ruling numbers and aspects in the chart, there are essences which can, you know, help round those rough edges a little bit and give a bit more balance, because I think for 4s, there's that real tendency, if they're not careful, to be workaholics.
And it's interesting because 2020 is that 4 universal year for the planet. And I talked about in my January forecast, we would all be dropping out of the rat race to spend time with our children. We would all be getting back to our homes and our hearts. We had to watch out for panic bugs. And, you know, everybody's starting to have to learn to pace themselves like a turtle at the moment. Just out of interest, in this system that I use, there's this life path turning point age. For you as an adult, it's 31. As a child, it's 4. Usually at these times, there's a lot of breakthroughs. I have quite a few examples I can give. For example, Oprah is a 31-4, apparently never missed a taping, very steady energy. At 31, she was just about to meet her partner. She did The Color Purple. She was really getting into her success point. So Ian, what was happening for you around that time?
Well, I'd started all my research on the bush essences when I was 30. And, you know, there was a 2-year period where I was out in the bush all the time researching. I've had my practice. So I'd be out during the day, you know, treating patients in the evening and observing the results of them. I was giving the remedies to, you know, doctors I knew, acupuncturists, naturopaths, so to see if they could get similar results to what I was. And in 87, that's when I started publishing information about the bush essences, and that's really when it people got to know about it. The articles came out in Wellbeing magazine, conferences, and I was very fortunate at that time that I had 2 book publishing companies who both wanted to publish a book by me about the essences. So that was really, you know, the year before was developing the information, but it was like at 31, then it all went out to public, if you like, with the bush essences.
I just love that. I got that real sense of building this beautiful home and then opening the doors that people could come in and enjoy that sort of garden or that beautiful energy you created. And it's interesting how the universe does give us ideas at these certain times, and it will line everything up. And if we can just follow those prompts, you know, it can actually be quite an enjoyable journey, which obviously, you know, you undertook. So how do you, sorry, what was that?
Daughter as well, which was, you know, when you're talking about the year 4 and people coming back into their heart, it's certainly, that was a nice thing of that family expanding and developing at that time too.
Oh, lovely. And I believe your daughter is an 11 like me.
Yeah, she's in fact, I think I felt sorry a couple of times for her teacher. She went to a Steiner school, which means in primary school you have the same teacher from first class for 8 years.
Yeah.
And to have a whole class of dragons and, you know, I think, you know, at the time majority were ruling 11s. I thought, well, he's got a handful. And I can remember at the time, you know, with my patients I was seeing, like, just like, oh, ruling 11. Oh, a ruling 11. Oh, my goodness, this person's not a ruling 11. Like, there was this whole influx of ruling 11s coming down. So I think they're certainly from about late 20s now to, you know, late 30s, that period, there was just a massive, you know, 40 or so down to about late 20s now, masses of ruling 11s coming in to bring a lot of spiritual insights, awareness, and what have you.
That's right. Yeah, well, and I work with a lot of 11s all the time, and 11s do better in a sort of congregation. And at your first workshop I went to, you said, "Who's an 11?" And I turned around and we took that photo that all the 11s were sitting in a row. One of the things I love about numerology is it dissolves prejudice. You've got this idea that you're a different color, you're different race, different age, you're so unique, no one will understand you. And then you realize you have this amazing thing in common. And I was sitting in the front because I think I already knew something like that was going to happen. I was having a bit of a giggle to myself. So you do attract a lot of people who have that family dynamic with you. Thank you for sharing that. So in terms of your heart chakra, Ian, how do you keep your chakra open, but not so open that you get drained? Because obviously with an open heart chakra, sometimes we can attract a lot of narcissists and energy vampires, people who are not mature. They don't want to grow up. They want you to care for them. So how do you sort of keep that healthy and sustainable?
Yeah, look, I think meditation, to me, that's been the biggest gift to my life, has been meditating. I think I've been meditating for well over 40 years as well. It's all happening around that time. I think I was meditating for a year or two before, which really led me into natural therapies and that spiritual realm. And I think that just helps ground me. And I know in my meditations in the morning and evening, and just like asking for good guidance and protection around that area. And look, I think fours are quite compassionate. They want to help. So it's like knowing where those boundaries are so you don't get drained too much from that as well. And then there's a lovely quote that I got from Neil Donald Walsh. And he said, like, when you're really angry or you're upset about something, he has the discipline to ask, how would love respond in this way? And like when I get that black-eyed Susan, get really impatient with someone, or we get a lot of people, you know, from the business sense, you know, doing knockoff versions of my work, which really infuriates me. You know, like there's that one hand want to go and thump them with a piece of wood, and the other part like, okay, well, don't focus on the negative and stay focused on where you are. So like having to remember that phrase when you get, you know, really riled up.
You're really a funny person. I think
well, hit them with love and compassion, you know, that's the thing.
It'll be an inflatable hammer with little like a fluffy toys hanging off. Well, that was good advice. Yeah, I do the numerology of words as well as names, addresses, and people. And meditation has a 4711 vibration, the same as mental health and the same as mental illness. And I think it is a very fine line. 11 is about moderating extremes. Meditation allows us to clean our house, I guess, in between those visits from other people, and it helps us to find that place for ourselves in our heart again, puts ourselves first again in a healthy way. So we know that the next generation of children, I call them the baby Yodas or the baby Buddhas, they're arriving pre-baked, and even in their life paths, a lot of them know what they're doing by 8, 9, 10, 11. Whereas most of us, for example, I'm a 2911. At 29, I discovered numerology and moved out of fundraising. At 31, you went into the essences. You know, a lot of them are 2 to 3 times as quick as us. They're like, you know, like the iPhones versus those brick things that we used to use. And so you've got a lot of confused parents with children who want to drop out of school. They're fighting back. They're doing petitions. And the parents are just like, don't you want to have a childhood? So you're someone who's pretty au fait with the energies on the planet. What can these parents do to preserve that authority but not suppress their children?
Well, there's one of the essences called Little Flannel Flower, and it's for that playful side, that innocent. It's one thing for these children to come through and you know, very much concerned about the planet, you know, like see the bizarre behavior of previous generations have done. But there's also that exposure, especially like on a sexual level, you know, being exposed to
Nothing's private anymore. Yeah, nothing's kept private anymore. There's no secrets, which also means there's no intimacy sometimes. There's nothing to look for.
And it's like you see them, the way that they dance, it's a very provocative sexually, and they're not aware of it. It's I think they get exposed to too many things, and Little Flannel Flower's a nice one to keep yeah, just to keep that innocence and playful. Now that's Little Flannel Flower. There's probably one of the most beautiful of all the flowers is Pink Flannel Flower. Now, probably a lot of people listening will know the Little Flannel Flower and the bigger Flannel Flower, but the third one, it grows in the Blue Mountains in Sydney, which is
your backdrop.
Background here, yeah. And it when I made it in 2004, it hadn't flowered for 40 years. In fact, there had been decent photos of it. Botanists weren't really sure if it exists or not. And it comes out after really intense bushfires with very strong heat. And the pink in color therapy, is probably many people know listening, is all about the love vibration. And these children are really coming here with open hearts to teach us about love. And getting exposed to some of the more negative aspects of humanity, the cruelness and the hardness and things like that, their hearts can close down. And this is a beautiful remedy for these children, just to keep their hearts open, because that's their role, is to do so much healing through love and through the heart. And so that's a really nice one that the parents can work with. The other one is, I'd suggest, is one called Green Spider Orchid. It grows in the Grampians in Victoria. And this is a remedy for telepathic communication, because these children, they're often a bit slow in learning to speak because they're telepathically communicating. So it's a really nice one for the parents to help tune in to their children. And in fact, if, you know, a couple are intending to start a family, it can be really good to take before that, during the pregnancy, and in those early days, to help tune into the spirit of who this being's coming down, and get a sense of what they're here to do, to help guide and direct them in that way, and to pick up that communication coming back from that wise higher self part of the child in communicating the parents as well.
I just so agree. It's hard to believe I was a scientist, you know, until not long ago, who didn't believe in all this, because you know, it's just through hard experience that I've changed my mind. So my son sat on the end of the bed before conception and said, "Hurry up, Mum, you're late." And I was so shocked, and we got pregnant straight away. And he's exactly the same now. So I know it's the same spirit. And all through the pregnancy, he would tell me, "Do this, do that, eat this, eat that. Don't worry about what the doctor says." Just kidding. No, sometimes he did say that. And he said things like, "Oh, don't worry if it's a cesarean or natural birth. I just need to get out." And I was so honored that he would talk to me, because I was an absolute nervous Nelly. I believe a lot of my eating disorder and mental health stuff was about that fear of becoming a mother and not doing a good job. So Forrest really was the David Attenborough kid. However, Charlie, my second, is telepathic. So when he came through, Forrest had done all the hard work, and Charlie didn't make any noise. I'd have to poke him and be like, "Are you still there?" And even now, because my husband and I now work as you know, as intuitives and psychics, we had long periods where we wouldn't talk to him. We just always knew what he wanted. And I realized that wasn't going to serve him in the world. So it's interesting what you talked about, is almost like we had this almost heavily masculinized logical world, capitalism head down, where everything had to be explained and justified. The children are coming through from that heart space where everything is felt. And we're trying to find that beautiful, happy medium or inner marriage. But yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people on my page. Their children are speaking late, or they're extremely sensitive. They seem to overreact, so to say. But yeah, I do find the essences can be super helpful. And even just that difference in attitude that you're talking about, keeping an open mind and just looking a little bit behind the veil.
And, you know, you mentioned earlier about in this year 4, where there's a lot more homeschooling, schools closing down around the world, and these children, like born of this millennium, they process information very differently. It's not that sequential order that, rote learning that, me and most previous generations learnt how to do it. So they just go and grab a bit of information, a bit like Google, grab something here, grab there, let go of what's not necessary. So trying to fit into the school model, which is not based like that, it's very hard. So that's the other area that I found that's a really big difference with these children. And we have a remedy called Cognus. It's a combination of different remedies to help with learning. It's got jacaranda in there. Jacaranda is a great remedy for children who are being called hyperactive, because they don't follow sequential. They just go and here, there, and they don't pay attention for things for too long because they just got what they need and they're off to the next thing. They just learn in a very different way, and that helps the children adapt and cope with the school model, because it's not their natural way for many.
I think, where the numerology is useful is you stop feeling sorry for your kids. In the end, they have chosen you, they have chosen this world, there is something they want to learn, and it's just about making it easier for them, helping them to stay in their flow. And yeah, like I can totally relate to what you're saying. I wish I'd had flower essences as a child, but all you can do is repair through actually helping others. So a couple more questions. We know 2020 is a really big year for the 4s like yourself. You're really in a powerful time. You've actually just started creating those new essences, which we'll talk about in a sec. I did have a question from a fan. What is the most unusual thing your spirit guides have asked you to do? And have you ever said no to them?
There's a couple of examples. Like with the bush essence, I'm making remedies from flowers. There's 3 ranges of spiritual remedies, and the first one they call the white light essence.
That's just they took me out. Oh my god, it was like 6 lifetimes and 6 bottles, or how many bottles it was. That was fun stuff.
I was directed to go down to Palenque in southern Mexico, and there's some Inca ruins there. Beautiful place. And I'd had in a meditation, my daughter was probably 8 or 9 at the time, and I saw her on her wedding day, and she had just grown up into a beautiful woman, a really nice person, was radiant, great joy and happiness. And I thought, great, I'm going to some really beautiful place on the planet, high energy spots. I've got this rose quartz crystal. I'm going to take that with me, and it's going to absorb energies in all these spots. And on wedding day, I'll give it to her to take. And I'm meditating in Palenque, and I got this message that I had to put in the ground there, Palenque, this rose quartz crystal that I had, been traveling around, building up its energy. And I'm going, no, this is not great. And I'm arguing, and I thought, what's the point? You're going to lose. So you might as well just give up. So I buried it there. And the next day I got the message that this was going to absorb the energy of Palenque, and I was to leave it in the ground for a year and to come back and to make a remedy. And when I came back and a year later, found the crystal, I buried it to make sure no one was going to find it. It said, this is a higher self essence, because you really trusted the higher self. So I got a sense if I had said no, the white light wouldn't have been made. And the final remedy I made in that, there are 7 remedies in that range, was in Putacusi Mountain. Now that's the very center of 2 concentric ring of mountains in Peru. Machu Picchu is one of the inner concentric rings around Putacusi. And there's these, they call stairs to heaven, these wooden rungs that you've got to climb up to get to Putacusi, straight up vertical. I'm loaded up like Hunchback of Quasimodo, Hunchback of Notre Dame, with bowls, brandy, water, and it's rainy, it's slippery, it's a wet season. I'm going up these ladders. It's like hundreds of meters up, and some of the rungs are broken. And it's probably the scariest moment in my life. I'm just sweating. I said, okay, Spirit, you're sending me up here. You better make sure I stay alive. And when I made it, it was, I meditated. I thought I'd meditate for half an hour. It was 2 hours. And I'm coming down in the dark, down these ladders. And, again, like, you sent me up here, you make sure you get me down. That was the closest I think I've come from saying no as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's the one story that stood out for me, and it made me take your essences more seriously. I wanted to share the white light essences. I don't know if it's contraindicated, but my son asked me to take them during pregnancy, which I know shocked some people. But I had the most extraordinary shifts, and he's the most lovely child, so switched on. But that higher self one was so beautiful. The first dose I took in your workshop, and I just bawled my eyes out. It took me through all the most painful memories of my life. And all that happened was there was a voice that said, I was there, and I was there, and I saw that, and you did that.
Mm.
When I wanted to, I wanted to leave and all these things as a very small child. And, things like that are very special moments. And I'm so very grateful I've come across your work. And I think you mentioned before that when you produce an essence, it almost creates like this grid. This grid, they all sort of link back to do you call it the mother tincture?
Yeah, yeah.
I've started really feeling that when I take an essence, even before I take it, it's got a history, it's got a story, and there's all those people who've intentionally taken it before hoping to get the same effect. It's like a little prayer in a bottle.
And it's like when you take it, it pulls back on the stock bottle, which then pulls back on the mother tincture and keeps the energy. And it's interesting, when I first started doing the essences 35 years ago, so I thought the mother tinctures last indefinitely, but I need to replace them because there's so much more psychic and physical pollution in our world here that they take more energy when you're taking them to work. So there's a greater pullback on those, the stock and then the mother tincture, the first dilution, if you like. So yeah, so things have changed a lot, but for them to work that optimal level, they have to replenish them more frequently now.
Well, yeah, I often wondered, because sometimes I would suggest essences and people would be into it, and sometimes they wouldn't. And I realized maybe the essences choose the people they want to work with. And I was like, what a cute little thing. It's like the way that children choose their parents. What a lovely, humbling way to look at it. So we're starting to wind up, and I wanted to mention that one of the reasons for this call is that for the first time in a couple of decades, you've developed some completely new essences, and you've kindly sent me a couple. I've got the carers one here. So could you tell us a bit about what inspired these? Because, I mean, it does take a lot to develop an essence, isn't it? It's just a whole head, heart sort of sacrifice for you for some time.
So carers was one that I'd been considering for about 1 or 2 years to make. And it's
your puppy?
Yeah, Rosie.
Hi, Rosie. I remember when I met you, Ian, Rosie jumped in my lap, and it was this sort of surprising thing because you just met me.
Yeah, she's a very loving dog. So for carers, you've got the professionals, health workers, could be naturopaths, doctors, nurses, who are having to make decisions all the day, and they knowing that if they get it wrong or wrong choices has severe implications for people. You've got mums of young children or a young child, is that total focus and attention. You might have some partners have been together 50 years and one's got dementia and the other one's having to look after them. They can't even get half an hour to go off to, get a haircut or something like that, because their partner might go wandering off and get lost. So it's really at all levels. It's dealing with that burden of responsibility. And some people get very sensitive. They pick up the energy of their patients or the kids or take it on their partner. So there's that nice psychic protection so you don't get burnt out. It's that worry for them, especially with the pandemic, I can't get to see my mum. She's over there in England or in Turkey somewhere. And I'm wondering what's going to happen. Is she going to be safe? And there's a level of huge change that can come about too when you're a carer. So adapting for that. And yeah, it's looking after your own needs. Some people are very good at looking after others and nurturing everyone else, but it's like not taking that time to look after your own needs. And especially, I think, for any carer to be effective in what they're doing, they need to be looking after themselves so they're strong, resilient, and got energy then to give out to the other people.
Yeah.
So
otherwise they're just spreading stress, right? Because if you're not spreading peace, you're spreading stress.
Yeah, so they're run down, exhausted, and they get sick themselves as well.
Yeah, which then makes the sick person feel guilty, which creates a negative spin cycle.
And they can get resentful. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, there's this beautiful saying: if someone loves you more than you love yourself, you become resentful. Something that's given me a lot of pause for thought in this lifetime. So can you tell me about this other essence you've developed as well?
The other essence is called Boost and was very much designed for the pandemic we're going through. And because there's so much problems with the lungs with this illness.
Yeah.
And in Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, there's that connection between emotions and specific parts in the body. Mm-hmm. And the remedy or the emotion affecting the lungs is sadness and grief. Mm-hmm. And I've never used the Sturt Desert Pea in a combination before, and it's a beautiful flower.
Came up as the card that wanted to talk this session, as did Red Helmet or as did Orchid Leaves, and I was like, I see. This is working through our Father God, Father Sky, Human Father stuff at the moment of like who is the one we look up to. Sorry,
men get COVID-19 than women. And I think men traditionally hold on to sadness and grief, have a greater difficulty letting go of it. I think everyone holds on to it, but men even more so. That's why I've got the Sturt Desert Pea. That red helmet is in the carers. We've got red helmet and we've also got bottle brush, because they're the remedies which are the bond between parents and their child. So red helmet's to your bond if you're a man, to your children if you have children, but also relates back to your father as well. Mm-hmm. So Boost, there are things in there again that for dealing with the change, like how long are we going to be in lockdown? Is it going to be a second wave? Yeah. So there's a lot of fear and concern. So I have remedies for that. The worry about your family, as I said. It's also that psychic protection so you don't pick up on all the fear and terror. I mean, I had friends working in health food stores and they're saying like it was horrible because so people are rushing in, I've got to buy, well, there's no vitamin C, and they're getting this fear and panic going on. So for you to stay very calm and centered, not pick up other people's energies in there. And it's just building up your resilience and also working on, just putting you in a good strength so you're not tired and weary, but you're, resilient, really full of energy and vitality as well.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful gift. And I have to say, when I first started taking essences, I couldn't understand how a little bottle with a bit of brandy and intention could work. But now I think of it like a little love letter. Like, when someone writes you a love letter, your child makes you a drawing and you keep it with you. And every time you see it, you just feel this purpose. And I just find having these little bottles around, and sometimes I just think of them, to be honest. It just like changing the station of my thinking, and I guess that's what I like about them. They're very gentle. So what's the feedback been like on these essences? I know we're starting to wind up, but have you had some feedback from people?
Oh, look, we had some people who've taken the emergency in dealing with the pandemic and fears and other things, and they sort of didn't quite help, and they've gone to the Boost, and it's like, oh wow, it just sort of, this is everything you said about this essence is going to do, it actually did. And I was sort of very, very excited by it and grateful that, he said in this little love letter in a bottle there was doing all these great things. And, I think in the caregivers, there's been a sense of playfulness and fun of enjoying having the children home or looking after that and nurturing the self more, putting the self forward. As you said, this is a global year for it, slowing down, but also, regenerating, recuperating, boosting up your energy,
Well, the heart is the quiet zone between the first three chakras of survival and relationships and money and popularity. And then this point where we stop desiring and craving and striving, and we just transmit what we want instead of always just thinking and analyzing and efforting. So we're all in this beautiful shift point here. I had a question which I think some people might be experiencing as they watch this call. Do you have to believe in the essences for them to work?
No, not at all, because they work extremely quickly on children and animals. So you can give them to young babies, you can give them to animals. So they've got no idea of why they're being given it, and they work. So it's not placebo.
It's an interesting one I had to work through. I guess you'd have to believe in it enough to take it regularly, right?
Like we had some great stories of, sent in to us by practitioners dealing with a person who's, usually it's a woman, not always, who's got a very abusive partner. And, stories like, they're afraid that if they put it in water or something, the husband would taste it and whack them. So, spiking in orange juice, some in coffee. One was woman was putting it in her husband's rum and coke. He was an interstate truck driver, be away for a number of days. He'd come home, he'd sit down, he'd drink his, rum and cola. And then she put it in there, and he'd been, a lot mellow. And he was saying one day, I don't know, they must be doing something different. It tastes different, tastes better these days. And, he'd stop bashing her and the kids up as well.
And
we have essences to help women or men in that situation when they are being abused, to help deal with the abuse, but also be strong enough to be able to take themselves out of those situations too.
Yeah, that's an issue I'm very passionate about, because so often we internalize that conflict and we beat ourselves up, and we simply don't allow ourselves to relax or rest or breathe. So we're starting to wind up. I just wanted to say, is there anything else you want to share with people who are watching today, who are coming out of the pandemic and, wondering, will they be able to navigate this new world?
Look, and it is a new world, because this is a huge transformational time, Sarah, and there's it's really very much coming out through the heart of the divine, the center of the universe. There's all these solar rays of impulse for raising consciousness. It's happening throughout the whole planet. It's happening here on Earth. Gaia, Mother Earth, is evolving, and as the mother, she wants us to get on board and evolve and raise our consciousness, open up our hearts and come with her. And there's a lot of old energy which is losing its grip of power and control.
Yeah.
And we've got so much fear being propagated during this pandemic, and fear is a way of controlling people. And it's really at that crossing point where we are at the moment. And there's so many high spiritual energies and beings wanting to help and bring us along and shifting our consciousness. And I think some of the spiritual remedies, the soul logos, the Isis essences, to really take our pain and suffering, deal with our fear, and really allow in our higher selves. And if we're radiating our spiritual self, we won't be affected by a pandemic or by those people.
Have some level of immunity. Yeah, I see what you mean. I wanted to mention, since you brought it up and we're starting to wind up, that you had suggested I take Gaia. And I've had some very profound things happen. And some of the first ones was I've gone back to writing comedy. And the other one was my car blew up, which things always happen, right, to me. My car blew up, and it's steaming, and it's very not good, going at 100 k's an hour, but not the first time I've been in a near-death situation, right? I got to have something to blog about. And I pull over in front of an RACQ tow truck and service vehicle. So they're literally towing someone who's just broken down. I've pulled over and gone, oh my God, oh, look at that. It's all okay. It's like falling off a cliff, and there's like a 2-inch drop. And they just looked at me and they're like, what the? And I'm like, is this like the Bermuda Triangle or what? And so they were able to help me. And you know what it showed me is that, because that really was my worst fear, having to break down in traffic and listen to that noise and pollution and be exposed to all that, that all we can do sometimes is make the journey more comfortable. Because the tow truck driver was telling me all these jokes, and they were saying every time they have to tow someone, they're always very confused about their life direction. I said, yes, I'm on the first day of my first vacation in like years, and my car's broken down. So all we can do is sometimes make the journey easier. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to you and your team, because you have an enormous team, don't you, for making the effort to do something different, and something that potentially is not always recognized or even accepted, but hopefully will give people that permission to question reality, and just that little reminder that they're loved.
It's a great message. Thank you. There is so many people who are very passionate that work with me to really put out a healing message to get out there in the world. And we talked about the children today. I think my original goal was to have the essence available in every home, so children get brought up with the essences to make things flow a little bit more easy and deal with more of those challenging times we've all went through in our childhoods, and to get a sense of what they're here to do and give them that courage to get out and do it.
I have I've often wondered how we sort of met each other, and I'm an 11 like your daughter, and so you're a 4 and she's a 2, and 4 + 2 is 6. So you're here to open eyes and open minds, make the world a better place, more eco-conscious, more socially conscious, more friendly for mothers and children, because 6 looks like a pregnancy. Wouldn't it be funny if your daughter had actually come into your life to stimulate you to help create those essences so she can sort of get those karmic benefits? Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah, it'd be very nice. I mean, she's working in event management, so I don't think she's going to be a sixth generation match, but I think that the fifth will stop with me. But yeah, so
11 is about double beginnings. I'm the first professional psychic in my family, which is a long line of teachers and accountants and things. But all I can say is, it's obvious that your love is with her, and I'm sure she could feel that. So what's the best way people can find out about your work? Do you have a website, social media, that kind of thing?
yeah, we're on Facebook and Instagram. It's and our website is ozflowers, ausflowers.com.au, and yeah, we've got lots of videos. All our back copies of newsletters are there. We have a free monthly newsletter, so there's a wealth of information. You know, we run courses people can do online, distance education courses. Yeah, so go to the website if you're interested. There's a lot of information that you can find all about the essences we've talked about today, and others as well.
Thanks, Ian. I wanted to say one last thing that had happened today, obviously getting me ready for the call. Firstly, of course, I saw a lot of repeating numbers like 1111, 1221, which I know you see things like that too, right? But the second thing is my car stopped twice today. Like I pulled up in front of something. The first one was a flower shop. So I turned around and there was this big, this was just before the call, like minutes, big flower sign. And I was like, yep.
Yep.
And then I had to go, and there's one more traffic light. I turned around, it was White Street. And I think I also saw the 77 and 44s, which we know is part of your name. So all I can say is what a great chat. Thank you so much. I look forward to more catch-ups soon. I hope that people watching this will have gotten something from it. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for Ian for joining us as well. And I'm just going to sign off with my traditional 1111 peace signs.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much.